Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Daybreak, the two Koreas will meet today to discuss the dates and location for reunions of families separated since the Korean War. Amid its peace offensive, Pyongyang criticizes Seoul and Washington's upcoming annual military drills. In a likely attempt to glorify its imperialistic past, Japan is pushing to enlist suicide notes and letters written by its wartime suicide pilots on the UNESCO Memory of the World Register. Plus, in a drive to boost Korea's employment rate to 70%, the government unveils a package aimed at keeping women in the workforce after they start a family. Daybreak begins now.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Daybreak on Wednesday, February 5th. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul. The two Koreas will sit down for working-level talks today to set the date and location for a round of reunions for families separated since the Korean War. The meeting is set for 10 a.m. Korea time on the North Korean side of the truce village of Panmunjom. Each side will be represented by a 3-member Red Cross delegation. While South Korea wants to hold the reunions at the North's Mount Kumgang Resort from February 17th to the 22nd, Pyongyang may suggest the family meetings be held after Seoul's annual military drills with Washington starting at the end of the month. North Korea broke its week-long silence on Monday to propose that the two sides meet to discuss details of the family gatherings. Amid its peace offensive, North Korea has blamed both South Korea and the U.S. for stoking tensions on the Korean peninsula. At a press conference in Moscow on Tuesday, the North Korean ambassador to Russia, Yong-jae, said Pyongyang is doing its best to improve relations with Seoul, referring to the North's recent proposal to end all slandering and hostilities on the peninsula. The proposal also included calls for Seoul to cancel its annual military drills with Washington, set to start at the end of this month. While Seoul and Washington say their drills are only defensive in nature, Pyongyang considers them a war game. The ambassador also said Washington's hostile policy towards Pyongyang was delaying the resumption of the six-party talks aimed at denuclearizing the North. A new report from a state-run Chinese think tank says Beijing should consider giving up its policy of unconditional support for ally North Korea if the regime launches further provocations in the future. Our Paul Lee has the details.
The Chinese Academy of Social Sciences released last month their Blue Book report on the development of Asia-Pacific affairs for 2014. The Beijing-based institute is the highest state-run research organization in the country and is considered one of the top think tanks in Asia. The new report mapped out 3 scenarios for the Korean peninsula over the next 5 to 10 years. It said either the two Koreas would unite, maintain the status quo, or that escalating tensions would result in military conflict in the region. The Academy said that in order to stabilize the peninsula, and in light of greater national interests, China might have to consider dropping its support for Pyongyang. The report stated that in the event North Korea continues to stage provocative acts, Beijing should not adhere to its stance of never abandoning North Korea. According to Chinese experts, Beijing shifted its foreign policy direction on the North after the regime unilaterally went ahead with long-range rocket launches and nuclear arms tests. They say North Korea has become more of a liability than a strategic asset and partner. It's an issue that the Chinese government has been reluctant to discuss publicly in the past, and therefore the release of such analysis was surprising.
This new report from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences deals with how China should respond to the developing changes in Asia-Pacific affairs.
The report also said that there was almost zero possibility of an all-out war erupting between the two Koreas in the near future. The release of this latest national report may suggest that China has a growing interest in unification, while letting its closest ally know that all options are on the table. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Japan is about to stir even more controversy about its military past, this time by submitting an application to register suicide notes and letters written by its wartime suicide bombers on the UNESCO Memory of the World Register. Local reports say officials in the city of Minami-Kyushu are pushing to enlist more than 330 messages written by the kamikaze pilots on the UNESCO list in 2015. The region was a base for kamikaze pilots who carried out suicide attacks against U.S. vessels during World War II. Japan had previously tried to enlist Kyushu and Yamaguchi, where Koreans were forced to work in labor camps during Japan's colonial rule of Korea as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se expressed Seoul's opposition to Tokyo's move on Tuesday, saying the suicide notes go against the basic ethics of UNESCO World Heritage. And here in Korea, balancing full-time work as a mother is a tough juggling act. Yet too often, working mothers lack the support they need. Well, until now, much-needed help is on the way thanks to a new series of government measures. Our Hwang-jae has more.
31-year-old Han Ji-hee quit her job as a video editor 7 months ago when she gave birth to her son Taemin. Han says it was impossible to raise her newborn and hold a full-time job.
I didn't want to quit my job, but I had no choice. There was no one to help me raise the baby, and I felt uneasy about putting him in a daycare center.
Han is not alone. Working moms in Korea face numerous obstacles at work that force many to quit. They include a lack of childcare services amid a male-dominated business culture, and to tackle them, the government unveiled a comprehensive plan on Tuesday aimed at making the nation's female workforce a new growth engine.
The best policy alternative when birth rates are low and the population is aging is higher female participation in the labor force. An OECD report also shows that Korea would add 1 percentage point to growth annually if it had equal gender employment.
Programs to support female workers were drawn up in line with women's life cycles. They include increasing subsidies for parents on childcare leave, encouraging flexible working hours, expanding the number of public nurseries, and improving vocational training to make it easier for women to return to their careers. The government also plans to operate and support a pool of substitute workers that can fill in gaps at companies created by workers going on parental leave. However, further support for small and medium-sized businesses is needed.
Large companies will be able to follow the government plans, but SMEs with small workforces will face difficulties in finding substitute workers.
Korea's female employment rate sits at just 54%, much lower than the OECD average of 65%. The government believes that boosting the female employment rate is a crucial factor in achieving its ambitious goal of raising the overall employment rate to 70%. Hwang-jae, Arirang News.
And President Park Geun-hye has offered a helping hand to women in trying to juggle a career and motherhood. Speaking at a meeting with female leaders on Tuesday, President Park pledged to create an environment that enables women to better balance the two. This after the government proposed a set of policies, including subsidies for parents on childcare leave, encouraging flexible working hours, and improving vocational training to make it easier for women to return to work. And shortly after preliminary registration began on Tuesday for local elections in June, President Park ordered officials to keep a close eye on them. Speaking at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, President Park said as the June local elections are the first elections to be held during her administration, they must be fair and clean. The president ordered government ministries to make sure the political neutrality of the elections is maintained and added she will penalize anyone involved in acts of corruption. Could the Year of the Horse usher in a new year of bipartisan harmony within the halls of the National Assembly? The chief of the ruling Saenuri Party reached out to the opposition on Tuesday, calling for cooperation across party lines to deal with the problems facing the nation. Kim Young-gil has the details.
At the beginning of this month's extra-parliamentary session on Tuesday, ruling Saenuri Party Chairman Hwang Woo-yeok called for bipartisan efforts to tackle the country's pending issues.
We need to form a long-term bipartisan coalition in order to implement effective state policies in the future. We can set up an organization in the National Assembly to promote the coalition.
The ruling party chief also spoke out on two issues, the domestic economy and North Korea. He vowed to work with the opposition to implement the 3-year economic innovation plan announced by President Park Geun-hye last month. The focus will be fostering the creative economy and balancing the economy as a whole by expanding the focus beyond foreign exports to stimulating domestic demand. He also stressed that Korea needs to strengthen the competitiveness of its smaller firms.
The government needs to better support Korea's small and mid-sized firms so that they can grow like Korea's major conglomerates and have a strong presence in global markets.
Hwang also urged rival parties to pass a long-pending bill on North Korea's human rights situation and to encourage more cultural exchanges between South Korea and North Korea. He said national integration was a first step to moving toward inter-Korean reunification. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world,
Return to the negotiation.
President Park Geun-hye planned, given the current circumstances.
on your way to work or at home,
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a
tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. It looks like that Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics will be pulling back the curtain on its latest Galaxy S smartphone later this month. The world's top smartphone maker said in an invitation to the press Tuesday that it would like to introduce a new device on the first day of the World Mobile Congress in Barcelona on February 24th. The invitation did not include details about what the device might be, but it had the number 5 in the upper right-hand corner, suggesting it could be the highly anticipated Galaxy S5. The new Galaxy model is expected to have a 13.2-centimeter HD screen with the latest identification features, such as fingerprint screening or eye detection. Sales of hybrid cars in Korea shot up last month as consumers were provided with more options to choose from. The Hyundai Kia Automotive Group says they sold a combined 2,300 units of their hybrid models in January, which marks a more than 34% increase on year and a nearly 160% jump from the previous month. It cited the upward trend to the release of their hybrid Grandeur and K7 models late last year. Hyundai and Kia currently offer a total of 7 hybrid models. Moving now to the recent oil spill in Korea's southern port city of Yeosu. It's been nearly a week since more than 160 tons of oil gushed out into the ocean after a tanker collided into pipelines. Cleanup operations are well underway as the questions about who was culpable in the accident. Kwon So-ah has the details.
Cleaning up the Yeosu oil spill will be harder than initially expected. While volunteers and authorities are doing all they can to reduce damage from the Lunar New Year's Day accident, tidal currents and winds are making things worse. In addition to waters off the southern port city of Yeosu in Jeollanam-do province, the oil has spread north, south, and east from the original spill site to Namhae-gun County in Gyeongsang-namdo province, where an oil slick measuring roughly 30 kilometers in diameter has formed. Aside from the cleanup efforts, questions are being raised about the accident itself. The head of the Yeosu Maritime Police Department said Monday that 164 tons were spilled, which is 200 times greater than the first estimates by the company said to be responsible for the accident, GS Caltex. The spill happened after a Singapore-registered oil tanker hit a landing bridge, causing 3 underwater pipelines operated by GS Caltex to rupture. The Yasu Coast Guard blames the tanker's pilots for exceeding the recommended speed on approach and GS Caltex for not reporting the spill until 30 minutes after it occurred. Residents affected by the spill say they're worried the pollution could lead to health problems and impact fishing, a primary source of income for many in the area.
When I first saw the news, they said it wasn't a big amount of oil that spilled. That's why I didn't think it would spread this far to where I work.
While officials say it is not difficult to get rid of the oil spilled in the water, the bigger problem lies on the seashore, where the cleanup process could take weeks. In the meantime, the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries said Tuesday that GS Caltex should compensate those affected. The ministry, company, and related authorities are scheduled to hold a meeting on the issues surrounding the spill on Thursday. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
2 days after protesters in Thailand disrupted voting in general elections, the opposition Democratic Party says it would challenge the basic premise of the elections in court. 2 complaints were to be filed with the Constitutional Court on Tuesday on claims that the election violated the Thai constitution as it came during a government-imposed state of emergency. The nation's election commission is set to meet Wednesday to investigate possible irregularities in the voting process. Meanwhile, on the streets of Bangkok, anti-government protesters vowed to organize even larger demonstrations against Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra and her government. The protesters are seeking an unelected People's Council to oversee political reforms and want Prime Minister Yingluck out of office. Russia has offered assurances that representatives of the Syrian government will attend a new round of peace talks next week in Geneva. The statements came after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's first-ever meeting with Syrian National Coalition chief Ahmad Jarba in Moscow on Tuesday. The previous round of negotiations in Geneva ended Friday with little progress. Lavrov said Russia wants to keep regular contacts with the Syrian opposition and is working with all sides to find a political solution to the crisis that began 3 years ago this March. Syria also plans to send a large shipment of chemical weapons out of the country this month and aims to have the removal process complete by March 1st. Following months of uncertainty, Microsoft has named its top cloud computing executive Satya Nadella as its new CEO. The tech firm also says Bill Gates will step aside as chairman of the board, but will stay on as a technology advisor to the company. John Thompson, who has been the lead independent director, takes up Gates' old role. Nadella's appointment ends a long search for a new leader after Steve Ballmer announced his intention to retire in August of last year. Nadella is only the 3rd CEO in Microsoft's 39-year history, following Bill Gates and Ballmer. The World Health Organization says cancer is growing at an alarming pace worldwide and new strategies are needed to prevent the disease. A report compiled by the WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer predicts the number of new cases of cancer will rise by more than 50% over the next 16 years, from the 14 million recorded in 2012 to 22 million in 2030. The report was completed with the contributions of more than 250 scientists and released for World Cancer Day. The report estimates that at current rates, 1 in 5 men and 1 in 6 women worldwide will develop cancer before they're 75, while 1 in 8 men and 1 in 12 women will die from the disease. Don't expect to see North Korean athletes competing in Sochi during the upcoming Winter Olympics. The International Olympic Committee has confirmed that not a single North Korean was successful in earning a ticket to compete in the Games. None earned special wildcards from any international sports federations either, meaning North Korea won't be represented at the Winter Olympics for the first time in 12 years. However, Pyongyang will reportedly be sending a delegation headed by Kim Young-nam, chairman of the Supreme People's Assembly, to attend the opening ceremony. The last North Korean to medal at the Winter Olympic Games came in 1992 in Albertville, France.
And a good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the latest in Sochi Winter Olympics. Now, with the Winter Games just days away now, looks like Sochi isn't ready yet. With $51 billion being spent on the Olympics, turns out many of the housing facilities and hotels aren't complete, even with the Winter Games, like I said, just days away. Now, according to several sources, many of the hotels that need to accommodate the visitors from around the world are still under construction, and housing facilities for the media are unfinished as well. And shifting over to golf, where Golf Digest named the top 100 greatest modern-day golfers. With all the top golfers since 1980 being named in the list, Tiger Woods topped the list as the greatest modern-day golfer, followed by the shark Greg Norman being listed number 2 on the list. Meanwhile, for South Korea's very own KJ Choi or Chae-kyung-ju, he was listed at number 70, becoming the highest-ranked Asian golfer on the list. Moving over to college basketball, where Syracuse University became the first school since 2011 to become the unanimous #1 team in the nation. After beating Duke over the weekend, followed by an Arizona loss, Syracuse received all 65 votes in this week's poll. And with that, over to domestic football, where the 2014 K-League Classic schedule was released on Tuesday. Now, the league will kick off on March 8th with the defending champions Pohang Steelers facing off against Ulsan Hyundai Tigers, as 12 teams will play 38 matches each for a total of 228 matches. And now over to some Tuesday night's KBL action as the Seoul Samsung Thunders took on the Incheon Itilan Elephants. Now, the first half of the game, Incheon jumps all over Samsung with Cha Ba-wi and Chung Jae-hong, each putting up 10 points in the first half as Incheon takes a huge 45-26 lead going into halftime. And even with Samsung's Lee Dong-jun putting up a game-high 15 points in the game, Incheon never looks back in this game as they absolutely crushed the Thunders 91-58. And finishing things off in V-League, where Hyundai Hillstate dominated Daejeon KGC in straight sets 3-0. Meanwhile, with the Samsung Hwaja Blue Fangs taking on the KEPCO Vic Storms, let's take a look at the highlights. Now, KEPCO playing a very scrappy game from the start as they take the first set 31-29. And with Leo Martinez stepping up for the Blue Fangs with 44 points on the night, the defending champions sweep the next 3 sets as they cruise through the rest of the way 3-1. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. This sudden cold snap just feels a lot colder after those mild weather conditions we had, right? And it seems like cold snap will keep grip on the country today as morning low has dropped to -10 again here in Seoul. But daily highs should be slightly warmer than yesterday, but still remaining below 0 in the upper parts of the country. So please dress warmly. And today shouldn't be as sunny as yesterday. Clouds will be hanging over the peninsula, although we will get a fair amount of sunshine during the day. And cold weather should start to ease up a bit this afternoon, thankfully. And cold snap will go away tomorrow afternoon. So on Thursday, temperatures should start to jump back up into the positives and should stay mild for a while. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul is at -10 and will get up to -1. And Taegwen, Gwangju should wake up to low of -7 and see a high of 2, while Busan wakes up to daily low of -5. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will climb up to 4 in the afternoon. Daejeon will get up to 1, while the top temperature on Mount Kumgang will be at -9. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. Don't forget to bundle up tight before heading out and hope you have a wonderful day.
And that does it for this Wednesday edition of Daybreak. Thank you for being with us.